Board Member Benavides, you are streaming.
Okay, thank you so much. Welcome to the Board of Education Finance Committee meeting. To those in attendance who are here for the regular board meeting that will happen when this meeting concludes, I would like to call the meeting to order. Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call, please?
No. Bernalda Tomorito,
Yes, here.
Josefina Dominguez,
Here.
Heather Benavides,
Here.
Tapia Romero.
Okay, our first item is to consider adoption of the November 19th, 2025 Finance Committee meeting agenda. May I have a motion and a second, please?
I move to adopt the November 19th Finance Committee meeting agenda. This is Board Member Dominguez.
I will second. Board Member Tomorito.
Thank you. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Bernalda Tomorito,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yes.
Heather Benavides.
Yes. The next item is to consider approval of the minutes from the Finance Committee meeting held on October 22nd, 2025. May I have a motion and a second, please?
I move to approve the minutes from the Finance Committee meeting on October 22nd, 2025. Board Member Dominguez.
And I will second. Board Member Tomorito.
Thank you. May I have a roll call vote, please, Dr. Albright?
Bernalda Tomorito,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
Heather Benavides.
Yes. The next item on the agenda is public forum comments. And do we have anybody in public forum? No, thank you so much. We will move on to item number 5, discussion items. Our next item is an update on the district's investment program for the first quarter of FY 2026. And the presenters are CFO Apodaca and Executive Director of Accounting, Mr. Turnbull.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Blakey. Again, this is a discussion item for the investment program for the first quarter of fiscal year 2026. As you can see in your packet, I've included the memo, investment summary, and also a report from our government portfolio advisors. So with that, I stand for questions.
Are there any questions from the committee?
No.
Okay, seeing none, we will move on to, let's see, I'm gonna make sure I'm doing this right. Item 6 and item 6.1, thank you. Consider approval of grant budget adjustments for housing stabilization project, Public School Capital Outlay Fund per House Bill 450, CTE Department, APS Homeless Project, State Legislative Appropriations and Attendance Support Funds. And the presenters for this are CFO Apodaca and the Senior Director of Grant Management, Ms. Marin. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. Superintendent Dr. Blakey presenting for your consideration of approval the grant management budget adjustment for the month of November 2025. Bringing to your attention the housing stabilization project that is a McKinney-Vento type of funding with a significant amount allocated and fast turnaround, and attendance support funding that we have reached out to New Mexico Public Education Department to understand the change in allocation. And it is based on the fact that the initial calculation was not accurate, and the final calculation ended up being significantly lower amount than the original target. Other than that, I did not see anything out of the ordinary, and I stand for questions.
Are there any questions from the committee? I have one, but I want to open it up to committee members first.
I'd like to ask a question about what the reasons were for the significant.
I am understanding that the original funding expected to be allocated to this was overstated, and the final confirmed number was significantly lower. And when the calculation were completed, the Albuquerque Public School allocation came up 150,000 lower.
Right, but what are the reasons behind all that?
No specific reasons were communicated by the Public Education Department to us, but I can try to get more details and pass them on to the board.
Okay. So it's PED.
Okay, thank you for asking my question. Board Member Tom Morito, do you have any questions on this item? If not, we can move on. I just wanted to give you the opportunity.
I don't, I'm sorry, just messing with the mic.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so just to make sure we're on track, we are now on item 6.2, consider approval of October 2025 interfunction transfers for grant budget. And again, our presenters are CFO Apodaca and Ms. Marin, the Senior Director of Grant Management. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Blakely, presenting for your consideration of approval, the grant management interfunction transfers for the month of October 2025. I did not see anything out of the ordinary. These are regular program alignments, and I stand for questions.
Okay, board members, having reviewed the documentation ahead of time, any questions? Or committee members, rather?
None for me.
Me neither.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Moving on to item 6.3, consider approval of October 2025 intra-function transfers for grant budget. And this is the same presenters, the CFO Apodaca and Ms. Marin, Senior Director of Grant Management. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Blakely, presenting for your consideration of approval, the intra-function transfers for grant management for the month of October 2025. The only significant alignment is for the MRI and CSI type of schools. This is a distribution of the original budget that you have approved in July to align with the New Mexico Public Education Department's approved applications.
Okay, and committee members, having reviewed the documentation ahead of time, do we have any questions?
None for me.
None from you? No? Okay, I don't see any questions. Thank you so much. Moving on to item 6.4, consider approval of October 2025 interfunction transfers for all non-categorical funds. Presenters are CFO Apodaca and Julianne Hicks, Senior Director of Budget and Strategic Planning. The floor is yours.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Superintendent Dr. Blakely, this agenda item requests your approval of inter-function budget transfers in October 2025 in the operational fund totaling $305,000. Happy to answer any questions.
Committee members, any questions?
None for me.
Okay, thank you. And on to item 6.5, consider approval of October 2025 intra-function transfers for all non-categorical funds. And our presenters are CFO Apodaca and Ms. Hicks, Senior Director, Budget and Strategic Planning. The floor is yours again.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the committee, Superintendent Dr. Blakely, this agenda item requests your approval of intra-function budget transfers for all non-categorical funds in the month of October 2025, totaling $6.1 million in operational funds, $160,000 in transportation funds, $252 in charter school business services funds, $3,000 in facility enterprise funds, $874,000 in food and nutrition services funds, and $7.2 million in capital funds. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Committee members, having reviewed the documentation ahead of time, do we have any questions on this item? None, seeing none. Okay, thank you so
None.
much. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I said none. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm going a little too fast. You can slow me down at any time. Moving on to item 6.6, consider approval of statement of equipment to be taken out of service from September 1st through September 30th, 2025 And our presenters on this are CFO Apodaca and Brian Allison, Senior Director of Capital Fiscal Services. Oh, and he is online. Thank you for joining us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Blakey. I am presenting for you to consider the approval of the statement of equipment to be taken out of service from September 1st to September 30th of 2025. The attached documentation in the packet identifies the equipment and furniture to be taken out of service in September of 2025 and to be disposed of in accordance with our New Mexico state statute. Our salvage department was in the amount of $328,093.59, and our technology department was in the amount of $1,271,492.78. And I would gladly answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for that. Committee members, having reviewed the documentation earlier, do we have any questions on this item?
Could you just clarify the amounts? What they reflect for each of the bullets on the action report?
Yes, so those are the total amounts of the purchases, if you will, of the assets that are being salvaged. A different document provided will give you a little further detail that it indicates the life of that amount that we used up. And so out of that, there was only $246 of net value remaining. So those are the amounts we purchased in, but we did use those assets up into the life of those amounts. Does that help?
Yes,
Mhm.
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from the
No.
committee? No? Okay. Thank you very much. And with that, we will move on to item 6.7. And that is consideration for approval of gifts, grants, and donations of more than $5,000. A donation of $7,500 to Valley High School from Michael L. Johnson. And the presenters on this are CFO Apodaca and Mark Turnbull, Executive Director of Accounting. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Blakey. Again, this is for consideration for your approval of a $7,500 donation to Valley High School from Michael L. Johnson, which will be used for the baseball team program. With that, I stand for questions.
Okay, committee members, having reviewed the documentation before the meeting, do we have any questions on this item?
None, except a big thank you.
Mhm. Agreed. It's very generous. Okay. Seeing none, thank you. We will move on to item 6.8. Consider approval of district purchases or expenditures that equals or exceeds $500,000 for audio video equipment and supplies. The presenters for this item are Dr. Gonzalez and Deputy Superintendent, CFO Apodaca and Executive Director of Procurement, Ms. Sanchez, and Assistant Deputy of Operations, Mr. Dufay. And the floor is yours.
Madam Chair, board members, Superintendent Dr. Blakey, the action item for her consideration is district purchases for audio video equipment. We are using a state of New Mexico pricing agreement, and the selected vendor is Audio Enhancements. The estimated purchase for 2 years is $8.2 million, and we'll be using legislative and SB 9 funds for these purchases. We stand for questions.
Okay, thank you so much. Committee members, any questions on this item?
None?
None.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, presenters. We will move on to item 6.9. Consider approval of district purchases or expenditures that equals or exceeds $500,000 for managed print services. Presenters are Chief of Communications, Joanna King, CFO Apodaca, and Adrian Sanchez, Executive Director of Procurement, possibly.
Madam Chair, board members, Superintendent Dr. Blakey, tonight we're asking the board to consider approval of a print services contract with Xerox Corporation for up to $2.6 million over 4 years using operational funds. APS Graphics Enterprise Service Senior Director Jerome Martinez is on Zoom if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Board members, I'm sorry, committee members, any questions on this item?
No.
No.
No. All right, thank you so much for being here with us this evening. Moving on to item 6.10. Consider approval of district purchases or expenditures that equals or exceeds $500,000 for science instructional materials for grades 6 through 12. Presenters are Dr. Mellerwine, Deputy Superintendent of Leadership and Learning, Sherry Jett, Chief Academic, I'm sorry, I'm doing this backwards. Sherry Jett, Chief Academic Officer, and CFO Apodaca, and possibly Adrienne Sanchez, Executive Director, who I don't think is here tonight, so I'm going to stop calling her out.
Madam Chair, board members, Superintendent Dr. Blakey, the action item before you for approval is to purchase science instructional materials for grades 6 through 12. It is from Active Open Science Ed, and we stand for questions.
Okay, thank you, presenters. Committee members, having reviewed the documentation before the meeting, do we have any questions on this item?
I can't help myself. I'm curious about this product. Active Open Science Ed, is that a company or?
Committee Chair Benavides and Board Member Dominguez. I'm actually going to ask Executive Director Shelmarie Harris to come because she can speak more eloquently than I can, but it is a company and it's an open source curriculum that we've done a thorough evaluation of, and it gives our teachers a fair amount of flexibility in how they use the curriculum, and it also comes with a fair number of manipulatives and lab kits.
Okay.
Company. It's a company.
And the product, I heard manipulatives, which,
So the product is an open source resource, which gives us more flexibility, like Chief Academic Officer Sherry Jett said. But it also gives us more flexibility for supplemental materials. So kits that we can provide to schools so that they have hands-on materials. So hands-on experiments that they can do. The Open SciEd is also very accessible for multi-languages and our special ed population. They were one of the only companies that are truly aligned with the Next Gen Science Standards, which is what we follow for New Mexico. And the cost is for the manipulatives or the kits to provide for all 6th through 12th grade.
that's great to hear. Hands-on and in mid-school, yes. So appreciate that. Thank you for the information.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions from committee members on this item?
No questions.
Thank you. Thank you for presenting. Moving on to item 6.11. Consider approval of district purchases or expenditures that equals or exceeds $500,000 for safety footwear. Presenters are Dr. Gonzalez and CFO Apodaca and possibly Marie Johnson.
Madam Chair, board members, Superintendent Dr. Blakey, the action item before you is approval to purchase safety footwear. And this is in accordance with the procurement code. We did issue an invitation to bid and we are multi-awarding it. This will be an 8-year contract, and within the 8 years, we have $1.6 million. Do you think that are an operational fund?
Okay, thank you very much. Committee members, any questions on this item?
None.
None? None? Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 6.12, consider approval of October 2025 cash disbursements. CFO Apodaca is our presenter again. Thank you. And committee members, or go ahead and present, and committee members, questions following, please.
Madam Chair, board members, Superintendent Dr. Blakey, this is consideration of approval of our October 2025 cash disbursements. PSAB Supplement 7 requires that the summary of vouchers be presented to the school board for approval, and this meets those requirements.
Thank you. Any questions from committee members?
Yes. What accounts, regarding the, I'm looking at page, I don't know what's helpful to you. It's 126 of 235 pages in my packet, but it's the graph shortly after the report, the action report. It's the second graph. Expense type, contract services, that first row, I see that there's an increase by like $1 million. And so what accounts for that $1 million increase in contract services?
Between September and October, just to clarify?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah, across the board.
Board Member Dominguez, Madam Chair, Board Member Superintendent Blakey. We do have a summary document in here that shows what the contract services are. We'll have to follow up with you and make a listing of those items to present to you to show what that consists of.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Does that conclude your inquiry?
For now it does, because
Okay.
I know that's going to take some time.
To do the calculation.
Right. And,
We'll get that for you.
Thank you.
okay, any other questions from committee members?
No further questions.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to action items, item 7.1. Consider recommending consent agenda board approval of items discussed during the November 19th, 2025 Finance Committee meeting, including grants, budget adjustments, October inter and intra function transfers for grant budget, October inter and intra function transfers for all non-categorical funds, statement of equipment to be taken out of service, gifts, grants, and donations, district purchases or expenditures that equal or exceeds $500,000, including audio video equipment, science instructional materials, managed print services, and safety footwear, and finally, October cash disbursements. May I have a motion and a second, please?
I move to recommend consent agenda approval, agenda board approval of items discussed during the November 19th, 2025 Finance Committee meeting as listed earlier. This is Board Member Dominguez.
I will second Board Member Tomorito.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Dr. Albright, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Ronaldo Tomorito,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
Heather Benavides.
Yes. Okay, item 8, our next Finance Committee meeting is going to be held on Wednesday, December 17th, 2025 at 5 p.m. Here at the complex, I guess not online, but it will be live streamed at aps.edu. And that adjourns our Finance Committee meeting. Thank you all for being here this evening.
Thank you, Member Benavides. Mr. Gonzalez, are there any changes that we need to make before we call the board meeting to order?
President Gonzalez, I am ready to go if Dr. Albright is ready to go.
We are also ready to go up here. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Then welcome to the Board of Education meeting for November 19th, 2025. I call the meeting to order. I do want to remind those speaking during tonight's meeting that we use closed captioning on YouTube live stream, so please speak as clearly as possible. As I am remote, Vice President Jackson will be chairing and facilitating the in-person components of the meeting. So I will turn it over to Vice President Jackson to lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, so I will ask you to stand if you are able and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance in both English and Spanish. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. juro fidelidad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la representar una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
Thank you. Next up is our acknowledgement of tribal lands. We gratefully acknowledge the Native peoples on whose homelands we gather, as well as the diverse and vibrant Native communities who make their home here today. I would like to now ask for a moment of silence for those who have given their lives in service to their country. Thank you. Dr. Albright, can we have a roll call, please?
Renata Tomorito,
Here.
Danella Estorga,
Here.
Josefina Dominguez.
Here.
Heather Benavides,
Here.
Courtney Jackson.
Here.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Here.
Crystal
Our
Tapia-
next, whoa, sorry.
I believe Crystal Tapia Romero is absent.
Did you want to call her?
Crystal Tapia Romero. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item is to consider adoption of the November 19th, 2025 Board of Education meeting agenda. As a reminder, per the APS Board of Education Governance Manual, board members can ask that an item be removed from the consent agenda before the meeting agenda is posted, but not during the meeting. Do we have a motion and a second?
I move we adopt the November 19th, 2025 Board of Education meeting agenda. This is Member Jackson.
I will second. This is Member Astorga.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Renata Tomorito,
Yes.
Danella Estorga,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yes.
Heather Benavides,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes. Our next item is to consider approval of the minutes from the Board of Education meeting on November 5th, 2025. Can we have a motion and a second?
I move that we approve the minutes from the Board of Education meeting held on November 5th, 2025. This is Board Member Benavides.
This is Board Member Dominguez. I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Renata Tomorito,
Yes.
Danella Estorga,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yes.
Heather Benavides,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes. Thank you. Our next item is public forum. Board Secretary Astorga, will you please share the instructions for public forum?
Yes, thank you, Board President. Welcome to our public forum guests. When you signed up to speak, you were asked to review rules and expectations which our presiding officer will enforce. The New Mexico Open Meetings Act requires that our agenda specify in advance the items that will be discussed and voted on during the meeting. Therefore, public forum is not a dialogue among speakers and board members, but rather a chance to hear from our community. We will call participants to speak in the order they signed up, whether in person or virtual. Those with us here tonight will be asked to come to the microphone at the back of the room when their name is called. Online guests will stay in a virtual waiting room until it is their turn to speak. We have set aside 45 minutes for public forum. If there are 22 or fewer speakers, you will each have 2 minutes to speak. Otherwise, you will have 1 minute. Tonight, we have 11 speakers, so you will have 2 minutes to speak. Once your time is up, you'll be asked to quickly wrap up. If you feel unable to convey your message, you may email boarded@aps.edu. In addition, for those of you here tonight, a representative from our service center is here to assist you. Mr. Gonzalez, please introduce the speakers.
Thank you, Board Member Astorga. Our first speaker is in the room tonight, Janet Sayers, and Janet will be followed by, Camelia Ramirez. You'll have 2 minutes once you begin speaking.
Okay, good evening, Madam President and board members. And tonight I would like to show you and mention a very special name. I was given a vinyl recording, AKA a record, of the Del Norte High School concert band, 1965. So that was Del Norte's first, well, it was actually the second year of operation, but the original band. And the conductor was Dale Kennedy. He was also the director of the choir, and I was in choir. This was at a time when school teachers were making the vast sum of about $4,000 a year. And he probably had, I don't know, hundreds of students. So someone found this at a thrift store, and I hope to get it digitized. So my ears just sprung up when I heard that APS is buying $2 million worth of audio-visual equipment. But anyway, we would like to get this digitized. But I just wanted to point out the thousands of teachers that, were part of APS for literally, their salaries were very low. And Dale Kennedy was certainly one of those. And then quickly on students and families and engagement, I was able to attend last night's Del Norte choir concert, which also featured McKinley Comets. And those parents were engaged. There was about 200 people there, and kids, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and they all came out to be there for their students. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Kamala Ramirez, followed by Dr. Sinello. You'll have 2 minutes once you begin speaking.
Good evening, Madam President, APS board members, and Superintendent Blakey. I would like to first take a moment to thank you for this opportunity to share my story. Hello, my name is Camila Ramirez. I am a smart teen mom with big hopes for my life. I want to tell you my story because La Academia de Esperanza helped me in ways I never thought were possible. Growing up, I never liked school. Things at home were always hard. My parents never told me they were proud of me or my siblings. We never got encouragement. I used to think school would be a place where I could feel safe, but it wasn't. When I got to high school, I was not motivated. I ditched a lot and my grades were really bad. The school was so big that teachers didn't even notice when I was struggling or when I needed help. Then my life changed even more before my junior year. I found out I was pregnant. When that happened, I felt like everything froze. I thought my life was over, like I would never finish school or have a future. But everything changed when I came to La Academia de Esperanza. This school didn't just give me a chance, they gave me hope. They gave me support I never had before. They offered me the grads class where young parents learn things every parent should know. They helped my baby get the things she needed. They gave me a schedule that worked for me so I could still take care of my daughter and stay in school. But the best part was the people. The teachers and the staff at La Academia de Esperanza are the most caring, kind, and motivating people I have ever met. They saw me, they listened to me. When I wanted to give up, they didn't let me. They told me I was strong. They told me I could do anything. And slowly I started to believe in them. Now I have straight A's. I actually love going to school. I feel proud of myself and I want my daughter to be proud of me too. Because of La Academia de Esperanza, I know I can succeed. I know I can be a good mom and I know I can have a future. Thank you, Madam President, APS board members, and Superintendent Blakey. Thank you for supporting a school that changes lives, students like me, who just needed someone to believe in them. I will remember this school forever because this is a place where I learned that anything is possible. Sincerely, Camila Ramirez. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Dr. Sinello, and he'll be followed by Gavin Pennington. And you'll have 2 minutes, sir, once you begin speaking.
Good evening, Madam President and members of the school board. As you already know, I am an alternative health doctor and minister. A few months ago, the U.S. Supreme Court issued a landmark decision reaffirming that parents have a constitutional right to control the religious upbringing of their children, even when their children attend a public school. In Mahmoud versus Taylor, it was ruled that a Maryland school district violated the First Amendment by revoking parents' ability to opt their children out of the reading LGBTQ theme books that conflicted with their religious beliefs. The court emphasized that parental rights do not end schools. The ruling establishes a nationwide requirement when public schools include instructional materials on controversial topics such as gender identity. They must accommodate families with sincere religious objections by offering and respecting an opt-out right to parents. In Mahmoud versus Taylor, a group of parents from diverse religious backgrounds sued their school district for refusing to notify and allow parents to opt out their children from reading LGBTQ+ books. The parents argued that the school's actions were a violation of the First Amendment right to free exercise of religion. The school district argued that it would be difficult and disruptive to allow every child with a religious objection to opt out. placing a burden on teachers and disrupting the classroom environment. The Supreme Court sided with parents. Per the Supreme Court decision, all public schools nationwide are required to allow parents to opt out of particular instructional materials and to notify the parents when the materials will be used in the classroom. Would you please, as elected school board members, do the right thing to side with parents and taxpayers for the sake of our children's health and well-being? Thank you. May God have mercy on APS.
And our next speaker is Gavin Pennington, followed by Dominique DePatie. You'll have 2 minutes when you begin speaking, sir.
Hello, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Blakey, and Priority School Bureau team. My name is Gavin Pennington. I'm a senior at Health Leadership High School. Thank you for allowing me to speak today on my experience. When I first came to Health Leadership High School, I was in credit recovery. I didn't take school too seriously, and I wasn't too sure what I wanted for my future. Health Leadership helped me make up my credits and, more importantly, helped me find a sense of purpose. Because of the support system at Health Leadership, like from my advisors, guidance from Student Success Coach, directors, and staff, I've been able to work hard towards credit recovery. Although I don't know much about the 90-day DASH plan, what I do know is that I've seen programs that have developed since I first arrived at Health Leadership. I've really noticed the school's response to me personally and to my peers. Being a part of these programs has given me opportunities that I don't think I would have had anywhere else. Because of that support, I'm proud to say that I'll be graduating this May. I'm truly grateful for my experience, and I hope that the reports you receive from the administrators at Health show the progress we've made and the impact these programs continue to have on students like me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. And our next speaker is Dominique DePatie, if she showed up, which I'm not sure she did. Okay, she's not here. The next one is Jasmine Sanchez Rojas, followed by Vanessa Grubbs. Ma'am, you'll have 2 minutes once you begin speaking.
Good evening, board and guests. Did you know that only 77% of seniors graduate on time in the state of New Mexico? My name is Jasmine Sanchez Rojas, and if you would ask me 2 years ago, I would have told you that I was a part of the 23% of seniors to not graduate on time. I am a senior, now graduating on time and all caught up in my credits and attendance. My junior year, I came from Highland High School to Archer Academy. I was behind on credits and doing poorly in my attendance and grades. Attending this school really brought me back to reality and prepared me for the next step in my life. It gave me hope and motivation to continue with education and work towards my bright future. Maintaining a 4.0 isn't easy, but with the help of the amazing teachers and staff, they helped me stay on track with the next step of my career. Having a small campus may seem doubtful, but in reality, it's where you can finally connect with the teachers who want to see you succeed and that believes in you to continue to accomplish your goals. Archer Academy gave me a second chance to improve and excel. Glad to be given a second chance. I'm thankful for all the teachers and amazing campus faculty for always believing in us and giving us their support. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Vanessa Grubbs. You'll have 2 minutes once you begin.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, and Superintendent Dr. Blakey. My name is Vanessa Grubbs, and I am a senior at Technology Leadership High School. I wanted to share my experience with you because this school has changed the way I see myself and my future. Our life skills classes have helped me plan for the future, understand my transcripts, and stay on track for graduation. Although I've been here for 4 years, I lacked a credit in health, and tech gave me the opportunity to recover it while also providing me with leadership opportunities. For this credit, I planned and facilitated 3 health days for the entire school, educating them on the connection between their mind and body health, as well as future careers in healthcare. I've also been able to explore real career paths. MESA has prepared me for college and career opportunities in mathematics, engineering, science, and technology. Through our Friday capstone classes, I've learned about different educational opportunities within my community. My internship at UNM Hospital taught me the importance of responsibility and professionalism, and being a tech ambassador's intern showed me how to represent my school and community with great intentions. The support at Tech isn't just academic. We have access to social workers and people who check in on us emotionally. I feel like I don't have to just talk about school with them. I can also discuss my personal problems outside of school and I won't feel any judgment. They don't just talk at us, they talk with us. They built meaningful relationships that made me feel seen and understood during times when school used to feel overwhelming. With smaller class sizes, teachers have the time to really connect with us. I've never felt like just another student here. I felt like someone worth investing in. Tech gave me more than credits. It gave me opportunities, confidence, and a future I'm excited about. I'm graduating because people here believed in me, and I hope schools like mine continue to get the support they need to keep changing lives. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is in person, Meredith DeLong. You'll have 2 minutes once you begin.
Everyone else who spoke was much taller than me, but we brought the microphone down. Good evening, Superintendent Blakely. Good evening, Madam President, and good evening, board members. My name is Captain DeLong with the United States Marine Corps, and I'm the executive officer for the Marine Corps recruiting station here. As part of our military recruiting efforts, not only within the Marine Corps, but within the other branches of service across the United States, we request certain information on all high school juniors and seniors to include name, address, telephone number, and other ways that we can contact them. Opt-outs are permitted per the Every Student Succeeds Act. However, the current registration process that the Albuquerque Public School District uses, I believe, may not be in accordance with those regulations. As I said, opt-outs are completely permitted for this process. However, it specifies in the Every Student Succeeds Act under Section 8025 that the opt-out process, number one, must come from either a parent or the individual themselves if they're over 18, must be in the form of a written submission, and must not allow any separation between military members and institutions of higher education. I've submitted paperwork to be presented to you after this in accordance with the guidelines for this forum. I've given you a copy of the Every Student Succeed Act, as well as a copy of the registration process that APS currently uses. You'll see on our online registration process for APS that there is no written requirement. It's just a check in the box for whether or not the information should be released or not. And there also is separation between information being released to military entities and what information being released to institutions of higher education, as well as potential employers. More than anything, I'm hoping that we can just come together to try to figure out a way to bring that more into accordance with the regulations, and that we can set up a time later to meet and work together to find a solution to this issue. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Edgar Briggs.
The taller side. Good evening, board, superintendent. It's my honor to be here tonight. I had the honor of being APS for 34 years and worked throughout the district from Van Buren to Manzano to Truman to Grant. In 2001, we became the first community school. And if you walked by Grant, you would see it said Grant Middle School Community Center. Mike McEntee welcomed a grant, some money through the city council. Dr. Beth Everett nominated us for the Atlantic Philanthropic. And we were a school with 300 kids when I came to Grant. The staff was concerned we were going to close. 13 years later, I retired with 1,000 students at Grant. A lot of that came from the nomination of Dr. Beth Everett for Atlantic Philanthropic. That also came about by the academic contracts we developed. And I say that because we brought kids from all over the city. We had before school program, after school program, sports and activities. I was back in those days, I was the community coordinator, athletic director, principal. But it was a good gig because our kids came through. We had earned graduation to San Diego Manzano. We had kids in and out of programs. We had activities with YMCA, with the AYBO basketball leagues, and et cetera. I was a little surprised the other day. I'm on two councils now, community council. My wife said I couldn't spell retired. So I didn't retire. I stayed with the communities, and I'm active with 3 different food pantries now. My point is, I was surprised when I went to council the other day, and a woman said that she was in a high school, and she was a member of the football boosters, and they were asked to have a meeting there, and they were asked how much they're going to pay. I said, ironically, back in the day when we had community school running, we had quinceañeras, powwows, baby showers, bluegrass groups, AYBL basketball, YMCA basketball. Gene Pino was very active in AYBL. Unfortunately, he's terminal with ALS, so he stopped the action. But my point is, we were open door policy community school. And as I said, our kids came from Polk, Journey Pile to Van Buren to whatever to transfer to Grant with academic expectation and community support. I hope the school board can look at that and the fact why we are charging community members to use the facilities. If it's an insurance issue, then have the group have an insurance, liability insurance, but open the doors. It was amazing opportunity. As I said, when I left there, retired, we had 1,000 students. And I was
Mr. Briggs, you've gone over your 2 minutes. Please wrap up very quickly in a
Thank you,
short
Board.
sentence. Thank you, sir. President Wallace, that completes public forum.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez, and thank you to our public forum guests. Our next item is to consider acceptance of progress monitoring reports for interim goal 3.1, which is related to the bilingual seal. Our presenters for this agenda item are Dr. Gabriela Duran Blakey, our superintendent, Dr. Randy Mollerwine, Deputy Superintendent of Leadership and Learning, Marco Harris, Assistant Superintendent, and Sherry Jett, Chief Academic Officer. Before we begin, we do need to confirm that our monitoring report is complete. I did meet with the administration and believe that all criteria for an effective report has been met, but I'll open up the door to anyone who thinks that we may be missing one of the elements. Does anyone have evidence that we are missing any required elements of the report?
There is none, Board President Gonzalez.
Great, thank you. Excellent. Since everyone agrees that the required elements are present, we'll open up the floor for our monitoring conversation. As a reminder, we've had the opportunity to ask questions that are technical or tactical in nature before tonight's meeting, and those questions and those answers are always posted with the agenda materials for the public to see. Each board member is expected to ask a question during the meeting to help us collectively understand how the administration's actions align to the board's goals and guardrails. Those questions must be SMART, meaning they must be strategic, measure-focused, ask-oriented, results-driven, and time-bound. So let's get started. I will go ahead and turn it over to Vice President Jackson to facilitate this part of the agenda.
Thank you, Board President Gonzalez. So I will just start on the dais to my immediate left. Board Member Astorga, do you have any questions?
Thank you. So my question, according to your data in the gaps of 9th grade course success, it states that failure rates are a barrier to SEAL eligibility for underserved groups. So knowing that the bilingual SEAL is not just about language development, but also about identity, culture, and belonging, how are you ensuring that students are receiving those skills to complete their coursework, since we understand that identity and belonging and representation proves success rate amongst courses? And I know we talked a little bit about cultural representation. So is there anything else that we're doing to make sure that students feel that belonging inside their coursework?
Thank you for that question, Board Member Astorga, members of the board, and Dr. Blakey, Superintendent Dr. Blakey. Apologize for that. So I think ideally what we are attempting to do is work through our principals and really building their capacity with understanding what that data presents to. So if we're looking at our panorama data, sense of belonging, obviously if it's looking like it is too low, we are looking at opportunities how to not only infuse those opportunities for young people to see themselves within lessons that would be created, but you cannot do that in creation of without knowing what the data presents. So we're working with our principals to strengthen whether it be our PLCs so that there is more succinct or intentional conversations around how to bring in the sense of belonging to lesson planning.
And just a follow-up with that, what are we doing in the classroom to ensure that the course success rate is reflecting like that cultural representation that you talked about last time, but also conversations with students, making sure that they build relationships with their teachers? Because I think that's a huge part of bilingual SEAL that isn't reflected in your report.
Member Astorga, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Blakey. I think what we are working towards, again, is that identification of being more consistent at mile marking through class. So instead of waiting to the 9th week to determine what that grade is, we pull back, and after week 1, we kind of measure and see where our students are performing and or are not, and then we attempt to fill those gaps. But I think the gap ideally is the consistency with following up with students, which I think in turn would ultimately generate that conversation. We heard a lot from our students in the back. They want to feel part of the class. Smaller classes help, but it's really engaging and understanding where that student is coming from, what that performance looks like, to get them to the space to provide the opportunity for that bilingual seal.
So I'm hearing that you're waiting for the data in order to put those plans in place, but do you have anything that is already in place?
So, I mean, advisory courses are one of those. I apologize. Member Astorga, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Blakey. I believe that through advisory and through different connecting points. Let me step that back. When you're talking about data, I think there's different forms of data. And I think on the land, on school sites, we kind of wait for those assessment data points and not looking at the daily sort of performances, whether it be in class assignments, whether it be homework, bringing those into the daily hands-on activities. I think we need to be better in managing and monitoring how we assess young people as we are moving through. And I think you're asking if there are structures in place. I believe our teaching and learning folks, our resource teachers, are going in and working with teachers to better understand how students are performing or not performing in the classes.
It's touching on it. Yeah. I think I'm thinking more outside of data right now. I know that that's a barrier, was that gaps in course success, but I feel like when we're talking about bilingual SIL, and not just in Spanish, but I know that we also have Russian bilingual SILs that's new, that was really great. Thinking more about how students identify with the coursework in order to provide that success rate. So I know there might not be an answer right now, but I think just thinking beyond, are they passing or are they not, but are they actually providing or getting what the bilingual SIL was meant to give the students, right? Which is that family feeling of this cohort of bilingual SIL recipients, of my identity with these people that I'm sharing these classes with, and this language and this culture is actually represented in the course, and not just can they speak the language or not. And I just want to emphasize that, because bilingual SIL is more than just here's your second language. So, but thank you for your information.
Does that conclude for now?
Yeah. Okay. And you're doing a great job. I hope that didn't sound like anything bad. I just want to make sure that when we're talking about bilingual SIL, that it's more than just checking the box that they can speak a language. It's more about that family building and that belonging, that you are doing that work with the panorama survey, but having to push that. Thank you.
Okay, Board Member Dominguez.
Thank you. I'm going to continue along a similar line, but I'll be more specific, because it's hard to know, for example, how these strategies apply to, specifically, I'll take children who have a Navajo tribal affiliation. So last year, I was struck that only we were honoring 2 seniors who had graduated with a bilingual SEAL in Navajo. And yet, I believe they represent the largest student population among Native American students. And so I was trying to figure out where in your root cause analyses and next steps, strategic actions, how do these plans apply to children like our Danae? students?
Board Vice President Jackson, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Blakey, thank you for that question. If I could consolidate the strategies into 3 areas, they really would be scheduling of the students, advisement, and then retention. And part of that strategy has been to expand our offerings of our Indigenous language classes. And so, for example, in prior years, we've offered them mainly to our 11th and 12th graders, but we know in order to achieve the seal, they really need to have that 4-year sequence of credits. And so now we are offering classes to 9th and 10th graders at Albuquerque High School. And those are open to students across the district, much like our Career Enrichment Center is. So we rely on the transportation for career enrichment to get students to Albuquerque High. So a student could be at Del Norte, but also at Albuquerque High to participate in that program. And the classes we're offering are Navajo government, as well as Zuni, and then a class we call Native American government. We do see expanding access will help us achieve more bilingual seals in the Navajo population.
And so in terms of strategies to encourage, bilingualism happens best early, very early on. And so how, even though this focuses on 9th graders, we know that this journey begins earlier. So how does that fit into your strategy for the bilingual seal?
Board Member Dominguez, I will go back to access. It's really looking at, in particular, we have Navajo programming at Tres Volcanes. Yes. And I want to say George I as well. No, okay, thank you for verifying. But again, it's going back into the access, because we agree that the earlier a student starts in their language education, we know just physiologically it's easier for them to learn a language. But we also have been really thoughtful about our messaging in terms of it's never too late to start, and bilingualism is for everyone. And as we have developed our messaging to really promote these programs, we are starting there. And I think it sort of speaks to Board Member Astorga's question about identity. We all have a place when it comes to language, and becoming a part of a community where we share that language and we share the attributes and the culture that go along with it. So short answer is just expanding access across the district is the primary strategy.
I would add that, it's important that this is seen as, I think having the board have this as a goal is the first step in how now it has become something that we're actually building out and monitoring, because it doesn't just happen. I don't think it would have happened just overnight, and it's very strategic in how we're offering the courses. Creating the program at Tres Volcanes, having elementary students all the way in a like pipeline to high school graduation, so they see the full articulation. I think that's really important to note, because although this interim goal is a snapshot of a value that the board holds in the district and the community to what we want our high school students to be able to do in a snapshot of this as a measure. But it is something that starts from preschool all the way into high school, as far as how we're really looking at bilingualism throughout their whole education experience. And so I think that it is an important interim goal, but this is a snapshot in a point of time in the high school experience, and it is not encompassing the spectrum of what it looks like in elementary schools that have robust programs starting from even our preschool programs all the way up to high school.
Yes, precisely. And so understanding this as a snapshot and very narrow, and that's there's a richness behind this, right? And so it would be good to find opportunities to talk about that. And I'm just going to put a plug in for Cleveland Middle School. International Baccalaureate, which has adopted, I think they're doing Navajo, right, school-wide. So, and it gets back to that we're much more than this. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Dominguez. Board Member Benavides.
Thank you, Vice President Jackson, and thank you presenters for being here this evening. I think it's good news that we're just slightly off track, trying to put a positive spin on it. It's not good to be off track, but slightly is not bad. And so as similar to Board Member Astorga's question, mine is referencing the class failure rates in 9th grade being a predictor. And in the report, it says it remains a barrier to CL eligibility, and that indicates an ongoing issue. And so as stated in the report, students fall off track early without robust interventions, and this needs to be tied to a root cause analysis. And so the strategy listed is conduct a first quarter root cause analysis to address why students fail any 9th grade course and provide preventative support. Planned actions are conduct a level 1 root cause analysis of 9th grade course failures and share findings with the bilingual coordinators, representatives to guide the design of targeted interventions. My question is pretty broad. Does APS have the capacity, staffing, and resources, for example, bilingual support staff, data analysis tools, intervention time, to implement these strategies effectively? And if not, what strategies are in place to resolve this?
Vice President Jackson, board members, assistant or superintendent, Dr. Blakey. I'm not 100% positive on the complete capacity of our department. However, what I can share with you is this week I met with Jessica Cano, who works under Chief Campos' department, and we have started looking at, and I'll get to your question. We started looking at the pathways and where we have solid pathways, because we know both of my children have been through bilingual education and have tested biliterate, and they both started at 3 years old into Spanish. But I'm talking language in general, and we know that if you want a child to speak at like a level of a native speaker, you got to get them going early. So we looked strategically at where our elementary schools feed our middle schools that feed our high schools, because I think our first thing is getting kids prepared when they get to 9th grade to be successful. And that starts at the early grades. And I think to answer Member Astorga's question, we have to be very conscious and intentionally interweave cultural awareness and cultural activities and things for kids that is part of their culture, but maybe they don't realize it or they don't experience in other ways. And so we have to blend that into the instruction, make the instruction more rich, involve families and things like that. And so my first part of that answer is we need to prepare our students earlier, so when they get to 9th grade, they can be successful. And we have to do that in all subject areas. Language is no different. But when we get to 9th grade, what we have to do again is build a sense of belonging so kids want to be there. A lot of our problems with our kids getting failure rates is because of attendance, chronic attendance. So one of the things that we're doing is we're building our freshman academies are gonna bring in a sense of belonging. We're gonna wrap our teachers around our kids so every child can have a teacher to connect to. And to answer your question, we think that sense of belonging and lowering our chronic absentee rates, getting kids at school more is going to get them more time on task and give them just a much better shot to be successful. But we also got to understand and diagnose our kids early and get them in small group, get them intervention, and get them to a point where that it doesn't end up to the end of the quarter or the end of the semester. We're like, oh no, the student is behind. We catch that student behind early. We get them caught up quick. We involve the parents, we involve all the support specialists. It's about a wraparound, it's about a team. And so, like I mentioned, Chief Campos, her department works with Chief Jet's department, who works with me, and we work as a team. And first of all, we gotta build a more comprehensive pathway plan. And then we got to look at how do we notice earlier indicators that a student may be falling behind. And there's things that are, well, first, our teacher that delivers the layer 1 instruction is probably the first level of that. And then if we can bring in other supports for a layer 2, I'm getting used to the vocabulary here, layer 2 intervention, that'll work. But I think it's it's about a pre-K-12 pathway, and it's about creating more of a sense of belonging. It's getting kids engaged in school, connecting to their cultural awareness and cultural identity. I think it's not just one thing. It's an and on multi-tiered response to when our students are falling behind. The other thing that I would like to share with you is that, yeah, we have a bilingual pathway, but a lot of our kids, if they don't have that opportunity, they move into a world language pathway freshman year. And we have to be very strategic in the fact that we know college going is 2 years of high school foreign language credit. So we need to communicate that early to our middle school families and our mid-school families. So we are getting more of our kids enrolled freshman year in the world language path. So there's multiple paths with this that meet this goal. And so I think we're looking at it from all areas, and we're looking at it as a team.
Okay. And do you feel like you have the staffing and the budget necessary to?
Yeah,
and not to drive the point home, but just to kind of add to the question, and
Yeah,
very
yeah.
comprehensive answer. Thank you.
100%. And I think I probably need to spend some more time with Chief Compos and Chief Jet to understand, is there gaps and where can we be strategic as we allocate our resources in certain areas? But really what I wanted to share with you that answer is that there's a comprehensive team approach to how we do it. We're looking at it very intentionally. I think we've learned on why we're not on track. And I think that we'll get on track pretty quickly, but it's more about getting the kids, getting our students the opportunity, because we know how important mastering a second language, being biliterate can be for a child's life. So it's more about getting more kids involved in that path and getting more kids on a pathway to success when they graduate, opposed to the goal. But that's how we're looking at it. We're looking at it, how do we build this pre-K-12 pathway to set our kids up when they get the 9th grade to be successful. So we don't have to be reactive. We're trying to be proactive.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. I'm going to go to our online board member, Tom Morito. Do you have a question?
Yes, and this falls on page 4, root cause. The first one under inconsistent early communication and recruitment for K through 8 under the description. In there, it states that many families remain unaware of bilingual pathways before high school. That's concerning for me, especially when we're looking at language and the adaptation of how students obtain language, and predominantly through, their own families. I know that the 2 students who earned the bilingual seal in Navajo had really strong families in their relationship, not only to who they were, but also the language specifically when it came to Navajo. So my question to the panel is, to what extent do families influence the student's ability to obtain the bilingual seal? And how can we strengthen family engagement to improve student participation and success?
Vice President Jackson, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Blakey. We appreciate that question because really from the beginning, and you see it reflected in the root cause analysis, we knew that we were not adequately communicating the opportunities to our families, particularly in the 8th to 9th grade transition. And through the Office of Language and Cultural Equity and Ms. Cano and her team, they've really worked on that key messaging that I mentioned earlier around language and bilingualism is for everyone. Specifically to your question, when we look at how we advise students and then how we ensure we're retaining students in the bilingual pathway, we see the family as being an incredibly important lever to that work. One thing that as we've looked at when students are coming out of the pathway, what's causing that, we realize that sometimes a student might drop a class that would put them on track for interim goal 3.1 without their parent knowing. And so now we're looking through how do we make that advisement stronger so that the family is involved in the conversation. They are helping the student to make a good decision so that we are being thoughtful about how we're reflecting the family's culture and what they value and what's important to them.
I just have one follow-up, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
I know last year, making a visit out to Navajo Nation and talking with some of the tribal leadership when it came to the Navajo language and the adoption of not only the program that Navajo was contributing to in making sure that those kids were getting the appropriate guidance they needed when it came to the language. How are tribes significantly, especially with our native language, being part of the bilingual seal and in that communication with tribes? How are we significantly strengthening that communication so that they are aware and part of these bilingual sales in order for these students to obtain not only the guidance needed for the language, but also to help them, to assure them that they get the supports and resources within those native communities for scholarships and those things that they may need if they graduate and move on to college.
Chief Campos is coming up, but I don't think you can see her on the screen. So she'll-
I never put this too close. Okay. Board Member Tomarito, Vice President Jackson, President Dominguez, Superintendent Blakey. So you are correct. I mean, we do need collaboration with our tribal communities for that. The first one I would say is one, we do have existing MOUs. So we have an MOU with the Pueblo of Zuni. We have a Navajo Nation MOU. And we have a MOU with the Saleta Pueblo. We actually just got a new MOU with Pueblo of Sandia just about a month ago. So that doesn't mean that we don't have to have an MOU to work with the tribes. I'll give you two examples of tribes that we have MOUs and the tribes we don't have MOUs. But those are very helpful because we come collaboratively. We look at what is the tribe, what are they wanting in terms of the education for language? Because it is a tricky piece with language, because as the conversation has noted, language is not just language. It is the culture, it is the community. So particularly for our tribal communities, there's always that balance because of course they want their students to speak the language, but there has to be a cultural component. And it is very sensitive to that community. So for instance, our MOU with the tribe of Zuni, it is just for Zuni members to have that language access. So we have to be very cognizant. Again, we're talking sovereignty and those pieces. So those are a lot of the things we work on with the MOUs. What is the accessibility? What are you looking for? Another good example of Zuni is they do have a curriculum they put together. So we partner with the Pueblo of Zuni on that curriculum piece. So it's not just APS going in, it is a collaborative partnership. So each of the tribes has that unique feature that we work with and then support on that way. So we would love to engage in more MOUs. I think the tribes would as well, but we also work with tribes that right now we don't have an MOU. A good example of that right now is San Felipe. We technically don't have an MOU, but we've met with their education team probably almost like on a monthly basis now because of just that. So they're looking, they have resources they have. They're also getting increased funding from the state. So they have tutoring programs. They're creating tribal language revitalization programs, typically on the weekend. So we're trying to partner with those tribal communities and make sure that our students, so again, I'll use San Felipe as an example. So the students at San Felipe, they go to APS, know about these programs and vice versa. We're also looking in terms of making sure that, like for instance, again, San Felipe students, they fill out the proper documentation where then we can be able to provide information to the tribe and vice versa. So we're able to monitor those areas. Same thing for, again, we're talking about attendance. We're looking at attendance and supporting the tribes supporting us to make sure their students are coming.
One more follow-up. And I know there are certain Pueblo tribes who do not have a written language. Have you encountered that?
Right now, Member Tomarito, not to my, we haven't, to my recollection, we haven't had those conversations. Again, what we're trying to do is individually go one-on-one with each tribe. And again, understand where they're at with wanting to teach their language in public school. I've seen in the past 10 years a shift because again, language is part of the culture and it's not usually done outside of the tribal community. So there is a concern, there is a historic concern about education and how that has been taught. So some of our older elders have historically been concerned about teaching language in the public school system. I think as we're just kind of seeing, I guess I call myself a little mature, but you know, on that and how more accessibility, but at the same time, what is it that they're wanting to teach? But like, again, there are some that are oral. So how do you, what is that collaboration on there as well? So again, I think it's one of those, we work one-on-one with each tribal community to see what they're wanting us to do and how we can best serve those students in a collaborative fashion.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Board Member Tomorito. I'm going to go to me next. My question is, and thank you, that was fascinating, Chief Campos. It's making me process a few things, but my question is on page 8, flowing into page 9 in regards to high quality instruction material. It sounds to me as though looking through the document, I think the process is there with the scheduling, the advisement, retention. I think that you have located the issues that need to be corrected. But if we pull up to guardrail 3, which is a requirement for high quality instruction material, and noting that there is a lack of upkeep and engagement in high quality instruction material, what are you doing to ensure that, how are you addressing any of the issues or concerns around the uptake of high quality instruction material, whether it be for Spanish, Navajo, and any of the languages, just on a broad sense? The guardrail 3 is still there. High quality instruction material still needs to be used. It's a requirement. So how are you how are you tracking that and ensuring its support?
Vice President Jackson, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Blakey, I agree that this goal runs parallel to guardrail 3 in terms of we want every student's daily experience to be marked by the use of high quality instructional material as well as high quality instructional strategies. That being said, I'm going to use our science adoption as an example of how we're working through that process. Interestingly, for secondary science curriculum, there's not a lot of dual language curriculum available, but we ensured that as we were going through our process for selection, that we were very thoughtful, not just that the curriculum was offered in Spanish primarily, but that it also had an opportunity for translation into other languages as our city becomes more diverse. And then also through our language and cultural equity team, ensuring that the translations offered were high quality, because that was a key part too, that sometimes, and guilty using something like Google Translate to communicate, that is not adequate for what happens in our classrooms on a daily basis. And so it really is through the adoption process, and then in relation to guardrail 3, how we go into our classrooms to see the usage and find out how exactly teachers are using those high quality instructional materials. And if we see that they are not, the coaching conversations that the principal and then also the team in LCE can offer support to ensure that we are indeed using those materials that are best for students.
Vice President Jackson, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, just to add, I mentioned earlier that I met with Executive Director Kano, who works directly under Chief Campus's department. And one of the conversations we had is she's consistently auditing and looking at how the materials are being used and how to support teachers at the highest level and making sure that our students are getting what they need through the development of the pedagogy and the use of the instructional materials. And we actually spoke about it at length this week. So I feel comfortable that Guardrail 3 is being met. And I do believe that some of our systems in place is why we're just a bit off on meeting the goal. We're just off track.
And I'd just love to add that Vice President Jackson, board members, and Superintendent Dr. Blakey. Yeah, this is hard to remember. We are also working pretty diligently with the principals and ensuring, if you note actually on page 9, if you look at Essential Practice B, that's actually the central practices of leadership within our state framework. And so we're working with our principals to mile mark and go into classes and do the walkthroughs frequently so that they can go back and look at the data and determine whether or not that high quality instruction and materials are being utilized. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a accountability measure as well.
Yes, I appreciate that. And I'm going to push back a little bit because you did put in the report that there was a concern about the utilization and the acquisition. So I'm not totally sure that Guardrail 3 is being met if there's still a concern about the utilization of high quality instruction material. From what I heard was it's available. You're working on the utilization. There are processes in place to promote the utilization, but I think what I'm looking for is the assurance of the utilization. And I think that, you know, you have, yes, I think you guys are getting, you're almost there, right? Like there's an audit, there's coaching, there's principals, they're like, all of those steps are in place. But ultimately, the high quality instructional material is there. The taxpayers paid for it. There's a guardrail requiring it, but we don't have 100% assurance that that high quality instruction material is being used in fulfillment towards this goal. So I appreciate what you've said. I'm just not sure it's there yet. So I would request that you continue to push, you continue to make sure that that utilization is there, because ultimately it is in service to this goal. So go for it.
Vice President Jackson, Member of the Board, Superintendent Blakey, completely understand. And I would like to point out that because it is Guardrail 3, we always look at it when we're off track. And we will note your comment, and we will make sure we stay focused and we utilize the resources that taxpayers have paid for at the highest level. So thank you for your comment.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I have no follow-ups. So I'm going to go to Board President Gonzalez, and then I'll go back through if there are any follow-up questions.
Great. Thank you, Vice President Jackson, and thank you to the team for the presentation, the data, and the work. It's really promising and exciting to see great progress being made on attainment of bilingual SEALs because we heard it was such a priority for our community. My question is related to page 9. Specifically, it says that there's a strategy, you will deploy a strategy to prioritize recruitment and retention of bilingual and TESOL endorsed educators. Which, as I read that and then the surrounding information, seems very broad. So strategy to prioritize recruitment and retention. So can you break that down a little for me? What specific strategies, what will be the activities, actions, initiatives? What is that going to look like to prioritize recruitment and retention of bilingual and TESOL endorsed educators?
Mr. Torgerson, could you pull up a chair?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey, excellent question. With respect to that, when this was presented in cabinet, one of the things that we discussed was actually the vacancy rate with respect to positions. So we're at a 10-year low for vacancy rates for high school. And certainly for this, when I looked this morning, there's one position. So we're actively recruiting in these areas to ensure that we're fully staffed. And also as part of our ongoing efforts with staffing and compensation is addressing those issues.
Thank you for that. Because I was wondering why we did not see lack of teachers as part of the root cause analysis, and yet recruiting and retaining is one of the strategies. I guess that leads to a follow-up question I do have around supply and demand. So if there were more supply of TESOL endorsed and bilingual teachers, would you be able to meet more demand? So how are you aligning and understanding what the demand is for these courses relative to just the staffing capacity that you currently have, or the number of vacancies and FTEs currently in place?
I'm on the supply side of that economic question with respect to demand and the marketing. I'd turn it over to
President Gonzalez, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. It's a bit of a complex question, but to answer it, I think yes. I think if we had more, we could offer more sections. I know that when I think about our foreign language, our bilingual, our heritage classes, I think about it as our fifth core. You know, you have your math, your science, your social studies, and your English, and I think about this as our fifth core. However, it's not necessarily staffed as a fifth core because it sort of falls into the elective realm a little bit. From my experience as an educator, New Mexico has a very robust second language, third language opportunities for students. And so to answer your question, I think the answer is yes. But I'm not positive what it completely looks like across our system. But as we are looking, as I mentioned earlier, I was looking with the executive director, Kanu, and we're looking at how do we extend our dual language into elementary schools and areas of our community that doesn't have it. It is going to require more staffing. So although when you get to high school and you start thinking about the combinations of classes and everything, it does get complex. When you look at our pre-K 12 pathway, to answer your question, absolutely. And I think we are going to have to add more adults that specialize in this area if we are going to get the equitable access across our community that we know our community deserves and that we aspire to execute.
And Board President Gonzalez and members of the board, in addition, I think that, you know, it's a really good question because it's all kind of connected to each other in why we are slightly off track. And I do think that although we are low in vacancies at the current time, I think retention still is a concern, and the demand. So last year we started trying to change the way that we register students for classes, and making it more district-wide courses that students can sign up for, so that we can really see what the demand is at each school. In the past, what we've done really is had course offering guides that are what classes the school is staffed for, and then building the schedules around it. And we're really trying to shift to more of a student demand type of scheduling, which means we'd have to adapt the demand of the staff to that. So I think as we continue this process with registering students based on their course request rather than what's already offered, we'll start to be able to adapt how many teachers we need to be able to meet those demands across the city instead of going to a school for a specific program.
Yeah. Thank you for that. It does seem that there's opportunity for more analysis and more work on this issue of teacher capacity versus vacancy and demand. One other quick follow-up related to just the teacher recruitment and retention area.
Go ahead.
What Is there any overlap between the Educator Rising program and bilingual education programs? So that the educators that you are preparing through your own pathway are also equipped and endorsed as teachers of second languages?
That's a good question, President Gonzalez. I don't know if there is intentional recruitment of the educators rising to then go into the pathway. But it certainly was
Or
something.
vice versa.
Yeah, we can certainly look and see what that looks like. We do have, through the residency programs, but through the Education Rising, that's a really good question that we can look at, and how many of those students are also being encouraged to join Educators Rising as something that they see as a future for them. So I think with our pathways in the academies, we'll certainly see growth in that area as well.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Board President Gonzalez. I'm going to go back through to see if there are any additional questions. Yes, okay, Board Member Storga.
And it kind of goes off of President Gonzalez's question, but just for point of clarification before I do ask, so the bilingual SIL program is technically elected classes, right? Right, electives. Okay, so this
No,
it's not electives.
not necessarily. Some of their content, do you want to?
So
Do they have to choose a core class as instead of an elective is my question.
Vice President Jackson, members of the board, superintendent. It is dependent on the type of SEAL that they are achieving. So for example, in our APS bilingual SEAL, they do have to take core content classes in another language. But for something like the global SEAL, it's more having the 4 credits in a continuous language program, which is elective, and then meeting a certain requirement on an assessment.
Okay, so clarify for me. So this goal, are we talking about APS bilingual SIL or it's global bilingual SIL?
Both.
It's both.
It's all, we actually
We have
3
another one.
pathways to a bilingual
Okay.
SEAL. One is through APS and the other is through the state of New Mexico SEAL of bilingualism and biliteracy, I believe is what it's called. And then we have that global SEAL of biliteracy.
And that's just the 4 language classes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That was doing a lot of stuff in my mind with the different classifications. So I'm going to specifically talk about the APS pathway to bilingual SIL. And I noticed on page 5 on fidelity, one of those is making sure that our advisory classes are upholding the strategy, right, in order to create a bilingual pathway. So my question is, in that pathway for APS bilingual SILs, do we have a strategy for all teachers to be GLAD certified? Because I know you have in there TESOL certified, but TESOL is specifically for students that are ESL, right? But GLAD certified is for anybody can teach the bilingual program. So do you have that? I know you talked a little bit about it last time. So can you expand on that strategy? And if we're looking at fidelity through advisory classes, how does that translate?
Vice President Jackson, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Blakey, I might ask Chief Campos to join us again for the specifics of the strategy. I can only speak broadly that I do know we're offering GLAD training right now. And it is a very worthwhile training, but also a little bit on the expensive side. And so, but I don't know the specifics of how that's being rolled out or the future strategy. I'll defer to Chief Campos.
Okay.
So Vice President Jackson, President Dominguez, Superintendent Blakey. So I have to be perfectly honest, GLAD is not my specific speciality on here, but what I do want to say is we are, through LCE, we are identifying it. We are trying to increase it and look at how we're supporting it more on there moving forward. And just like anything else, really trying to make sure it's not a requirement. So why would it be something like our teachers want to do? So how do we get that ownership? So of course, starting with the principals and starting with our teachers and going through our staff and making really for them to understand what it is, why it would be something that they want to do and how we can put it in. So that is a priority moving forward. But again, it's one of these organic processes to really have them understand why it's important to them to be able to do that program.
And just a follow-up, so going back to, like I said, page 5, where it says rigor and fidelity, implement fidelity checks on advisory lessons. I'm assuming that means advisory classes. So is there a strategy to target advisory teachers? And I know that's kind of, I see some nodding, so I'll just stop.
Board Member Astorga, President Dominguez, and everybody else on the board, I apologize, and Superintendent Dr. Blakey. Repeat the question. I apologize.
No, yeah. So on page 5, where it says implement fidelity checks on advisory lessons, I'm wondering if this is advisory classes, because I know the teacher doesn't necessarily it might not be a bilingual teacher who are doing these lessons. So how are we strategizing to make sure that those advisory teachers are certified and trained to continue this pathway?
Well, that's an extension of the question, but what I would say is that it is actually the lessons that we are talking about that I would actually venture to say with Executive Director Kano and her team are revising and advising within lesson planning for those advisory spaces. The idea of ensuring that everybody has the ability to do that, I think that's a greater question. And I think that kind of loops back to the possibilities around professional development and either GLAD strategies, how would you say, staff-wide and so forth. So no, it directly addresses the lessons. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah, no, that answers my question. Thank you. I have a few more, but I can wait.
Okay, yeah, let me see if there's any.
Thank you.
Board Member Dominguez, Board Member Benavides, any follow-ups? Okay, I see Board President Gonzalez, your hand is raised.
Thank you. My question is essentially related to budget implications. And so as I read through the report, sort of the main categories around training, monitoring, communication, those don't seem to have any clear budget implications. But as we talk about things like potentially expanding course options, hiring more teachers, expanding language courses into elementary and middle school, there would be some budget implications there. So I'm hoping you could just speak to any budget implications related to what we might anticipate in order to need to meet this interim goal.
Thank you, Board President Gonzalez, members of the board. I would say there could possibly be budget implications in staffing. It's hard to note because students can still only take so many courses. So mathematically, even though this isn't the math goal, but mathematically it would be the same number of students in courses, but different courses. It would essentially replace maybe courses that are being offered now that are not as on demand for students. So it's hard to know exactly how much it would cost in staffing because it could be close to neutral depending on how we were to schedule that. I think that the main cost is in trainings. So as we just talked a little bit about the GLAD training, that would cost money. Any professional development for teachers that's where the cost is. It's in time for training or the training itself. So in expanding this goal, really a lot of the budget implications is in professional development primarily.
Okay. Okay, Board Member Tomorito, I see that your hand is up.
I guess my question falls on I just had it here. On page 10, and the first portion of it says support the development of a framework to ensure that the next steps plan developed in 8th grade is implemented in high school. This framework will help identify and encourage students to take a course in 9th grade that can count toward the bilingual seal. So my question is, because I have a a problem when it comes to the special education students and transition plans, because we're using both next steps and transition plans, and I'm trying to figure out if how can we effectively use not only the next steps plan and special education transition plans to guide and support students with disabilities in beginning and successfully pursuing the bilingual SIL pathway. But I'm a little confused if it's the next step plan that we're using instead of a transition plan. So could you give me ideas on how you're incorporating both of this when it comes to our students with disabilities?
Board Member Joe, Board President Gonzalez, and Superintendent Dr. Blakey. I think I got it right this time. Next step plans drive, I guess, general education students, IDEA and or the IEP, aka the transition plan, would actually drive decisions around students within special education. So I think it is our job and it's incumbent to weave a process together that would allow the transition plan obviously to drive, but it wouldn't exclude, right, access or opportunity that all students should have on campuses. So the transition plan drives where and what that student is taking, but we do need to do a better collaborative effort in ensuring that whether it's the next step plan and or the transition plan, that they are woven together so that student is clear where they're going and everyone else.
Yeah, I just have a concern because I think that for students with disabilities, I'm really trying to understand why we have both plans. And I just feel that if we are going to continue next steps and one not really fulfilling the transition plan, and as you were stating, you want to integrate, but I really don't think we need to integrate if the transition plan is doing what it needs to appropriately fill whatever the next steps plans are. So I just don't want to create confusion, especially if this is going out to families. And that's going to hinder whether we get that information out for the bilingual seal. When we have two plans in place, that's only going to create, like I said before, confusion. So I hope we really work that out because I'm really concerned as our children with disabilities move forward. I just don't like the confusion that's being put forth. So I hope we work that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Tomorito. Board Member Astorga, coming back to you.
Thank you. So my next question is about strategies, and specifically talking about our new international high school. Since there is a lot of different cultures and languages that are coming through that high school, are there different strategies that are specified from that high school that are different from a traditional APS school when it comes to bilingual skills?
Vice President Jackson, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Blakey, I need to think about that for a minute, to be frank, but I can tell you that 100% of the students who are enrolled at the international high school right now are also enrolled in a course leading them towards a bilingual seal. That being said, as we continue to build that school out, it's something we will have to be mindful about in terms of how we're addressing the really very unique needs of that student population so that they are staying on the pathway to achieve the seal.
Great, thank you. And I have one final question.
I think you're the last one, so go for it.
This is a more like a technical question, but I think it's just something that I'm really interested in. And so do we have any data that shows how many bilingual SIL recipients are passing our AP bilingual tests, like AP Spanish tests?
Vice President Jackson, Board Member Astorga, Superintendent Blakey, board members. So we don't, but we would love to do that for you guys and find out what we see. We definitely, one of the, I would say, exciting challenges, and maybe that sounds weird to some people, but the meeting challenges are exciting, is to see how this looks. Because the idea when you guys came together and listen to the community in terms of what you wanted our students to be able to demonstrate that they know and can do. That was part of it, right? It was the same thing with our profile graduate. So it's not just being one aspect of it. So we do, and actually, Chief Jet just used this statistic that we looked at today. We are looking to make sure we're seeing what are our students experiencing, because they're not experiencing these interns separately. So I look forward to providing you with that information.
Yeah, no, that's really exciting just because personal story, I went through the bilingual program, got my bilingual at Albuquerque High School, but I remember my teachers really pushing us to do those AP tests just because going into college, you don't have to continue to take your language courses. So connecting all of this with our goal with an AP placements, all of that stuff, I think it's just be really good to look at to see if what we're doing is following our students into the next step of college. So thank you.
All right, thank you. I am not seeing any further questions. So sorry. Okay, Board Member Dominguez.
And it was related and it just slipped my mind. We were talking about AP.
The AP test.
Spanish. I'll have to send it in.
It'll come back to you in like 30 minutes. Okay, so I believe no further questions. So Board President Gonzalez, I'm turning it back over to you.
Great, thank you, Vice President Jackson, and thank you to the board and the administration for this productive conversation. Now we must vote on whether or not we will accept this monitoring report. As a reminder, we are voting to accept this report as a formal acknowledgement that we had a satisfactory conversation with the superintendent and her team, and that we have a deeper understanding of how the current reality for students lines up with our vision for them. In order to accept the report, we must answer yes to the following 3 questions. I'll say them all together. 1, does the reality of this report meet our vision for the goal? 2, is there growth toward the vision? And 3, is there a strategy and plan sufficient to cause growth toward the vision? Is the answer to all 3 of those yes?
Seeing yeses.
So no, because, and now I remember the question. So I guess I'm trying to get.
Member Dominguez, will turn the floor to you then to ask a question.
Thank you. I'm having the question that comes up to me is, so where do our students stand and what is the path forward? Because I'm not clear. There's a lot of verbiage and I've heard a discussion, but I keep going back to the guidance we get on our technical, tactical, strategic questions, and something that is stressed over and over again in the framework that we've adopted is, do we have a clear understanding of where our students are now? Well, yeah, the graph does sort of show us that. But after this discussion, what are next steps? Has anything changed for you all? Did you learn anything from us that would help with next steps?
Vice President Jackson, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Blakey. The reason I was able to quote the statistic today was because Mr. West very kindly ran a data set for us that showed us what our enrollment is in these classes and exactly where we are today. And so our next steps that we've discussed are really so as of right now, 52.5% of our students, according to the verbiage in this goal, that is the number that it is, 52.5. So that's good. That could have us be on track. And so our next steps really are to dig into our students' success systems. We don't want students to not pass these classes. We want to get really intentional about helping them and supporting them and wrapping around them. We also talked via text today about, could we do an early warning report that's specifically for interim goal 3.1, so we can keep an eye on when these students are starting to flag for whether it be their grades or their attendance or anything that may be a barrier to keeping them on this pathway. So I appreciate the question, and I would say that yes, we do have some pretty concrete next steps in terms of how we can support these students in staying in the bilingual pathway.
And did this conversation tonight help in any way?
Board Member Dominguez, these conversations are always fruitful. I always enjoy the dialogue. What was particularly helpful, I think, is the preparation and the accountability that comes to the team in terms of progress monitoring the interim goal. I know I've definitely written down ideas for follow-up, for example, the Ed Rising and developing our bilingual teacher pipeline. It's a really good insight that I think we need to follow up on, both in terms of where we are in that data and then what are our recruitment strategies. So yes, thank you for the questions that really push us to think more deeply about this interim goal.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Board President Gonzalez. Good. Okay. Turning it back over to you, Board President Gonzalez. So I believe we were at the 3 questions.
We were at the 3 questions. And so is the answer to all 3 of the questions yes?
Yes. Yes. Seeing yeses from the dais.
Thank you. Since the answer to all 3 questions is yes, then the board can accept the monitoring report, confident that the data is accurate and that the superintendent is performing. At this point, we're ready to entertain a motion then to accept this monitoring report.
I move we consider acceptance of the progress monitoring report for interim goal 3.1 bilingual seal. This is Member Jackson.
And I'll second. Go ahead.
I will second Member Astorga.
We have a motion from Member Jackson, and I believe the second was from Member Astorga.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Albright, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Ronaldo Tomorito,
Yes.
Janelle Astorga,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yes.
Heather Benavides.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes. So the motion carries. And again, thank you to the team for the presentation and importantly for the great work that you're doing to support bilingualism in our community. We will move on now to our next item, which is to consider approval of the consent agenda. Do we have a motion and a second for approval of consent agenda items 6.1 through 6.14?
I move we consider, I move to approve the consent agenda for items 6.1 through item 6.14. This is Member Jackson.
I will second Member Astorga.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Is there any discussion?
Sorry?
I wanted to ask a quick question if I can about one of the items on the consent agenda. I know that this is consent agenda, it's not really discussion time, but point of order.
I would turn to our parliamentarian or board services on that one.
Ooh. I mean, we generally have a even if there's a motion, there's a discussion.
So Member Benavides, why don't you go ahead and ask your question and then we can see where we need to go from there.
Thank you. So my question is specific to item 6.2, which is the proposed revision to the board, the APS Board of Education Governance Manual 4.m.7. And I'm just curious about how this change came to be, who requested it, why are we doing it? It shortens the timeline or for the board members to be able to take something off of the consent agenda, and a little bit of historical context I think would be helpful.
So that is the type of question that we would have needed to have asked in advance or to have removed the item from the consent agenda. So we can send, have board services send that information to the full board following the meeting. Does that work?
Yes, that works, President Gonzalez.
Okay, thank you. We do have a motion and a second then. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Ronaldo Tomorito. Ronaldo Tomorito.
Yes, as long as we take that item 6.2 into consideration, I vote yes.
Janelle Astorga.
I vote yes, and I also want to be specific that I'm only voting to approve the award funds for HB 450 and not the plan that was sent in advance. And I believe that the board should discuss that further. I'm also approving 6.2 with understanding that next year there's a governance manual review and this item will be coming up again.
Josefina Dominguez.
I have a statement to explain my no vote. The way items 6.1, 6.2, 6.3 were placed on this consent agenda without full board approval violates the very spirit of Open Meetings Act, which is to promote transparency. But our own board rules prevented me from removing these items from the consent agenda in order to have a discussion, particularly around a $4 million acceptance for capital outlay. Like Board Member Astorga, I would have liked to have clarified that I give my approval for the acceptance of that money, but HB 430 makes it very clear that it will require community input and board oversight in collaboration with the administration. And the public needs to be aware of that, all those facts, and deserved a full board discussion on these items. And I certainly hope that the new board will take a different approach to the consent agenda. So my vote is no for those reasons only.
Heather Benavides.
I vote yes with the acknowledgement that, thank you, you will be sending, Dr. Albright, you will be sending us the information for the historical context on the proposed change to the governance manual 4.m.7, as well as taking into consideration that we will be bringing this up again when the new board is assembled in January.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes. Thank you. That motion carries, and we will move on to agenda item 7.1, which is a review of the 2025-2026 school improvement and transformation plans for 13 charter schools. Our presenters for this agenda item, we have Dr. Melanie Blay, Executive Director of Federal and State Programs, and Dr. Joseph Escobedo, Senior Director of Charter Schools. This is a requirement from the Public Education Department in regards to our accountability of schools who are in need of improvement. And tonight there are 13 APS authorized charter schools who are identified as comprehensive support and improvement school or more rigorous intervention under the state's accountability structure and submitted to the federal government in compliance with the Elementary Secondary Education Act. We've had the materials in advance and we've had the opportunity to ask questions in advance. We do have present tonight the governing council presidents and executive directors from the 13 schools, as well as I mentioned, Dr. Blay and Dr. Escobedo here from the administration. So again, as a reminder, this is a procedural requirement from the Public Education Department. It's not an action item and there is no approval. The APS Board of Education does not have any authority on these matters. So we can ask questions, but the information that's provided is strictly informational. So do board members have any questions about the strategic improvement and transformation plans of any of these charter schools? And I will turn it over to Vice President Jackson to facilitate if there are any questions.
Thank you, Board President. Are there any questions? Board Member Astorga.
Thank you. I have one question, and it really is something that I caught as a theme through every single one of the plans, and it goes back to professional development for teachers when it comes to lesson plans or using high quality instructional materials. And it seems like that was most of the performance challenges, right? Is how do we make sure that the professional development for our teachers is doing its job, right? Is making sure that they're able to use curriculum lessons and that their data is showing that that's working. So do you have any strategies that you can share with me that focuses on that professional development for teachers? Because it's multiple schools that I see this with.
Madam Chair and Board Member Astorga and Dr. Blakey, I would recommend, I could recommend a couple of schools that maybe can come and answer that question.
That'd be great.
We don't really get into that space too. So, do we have any volunteers? Yeah, Edward and Jen, would you mind? So Edward Ramirez from Siembra Leadership and Jen Pry from Gilbert Sena. First.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Blakey. Knowing that professional development is a critical role in improving student outcomes, one of the strategies that Siembra Leadership High School has employed this year is hiring 5 instructional coaches who work specifically with each grade level and provide ongoing in real-time professional development for our teachers. This also includes a weekly 2-hour professional development that is based on data that we collect throughout the school year as we are going.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Blakey. My name is Jen Pry, and I get to be the executive director at Gilbert Sena Charter High School. Very similar to Siembra's approach, we have close to 3 hours per week of some kind of professional development scattered throughout different teachers' day. I have implemented with the assistance of our governance board a internal mission aligned teacher evaluation system that allows biweekly feedback to teachers amongst walkthroughs. I spend on average as the lone instructional coach, because I'm quite a bit smaller. I spend on average between 4 to 7 hours a week. Last year, my claim to fame was I spent 6.5 hours a week inside various classrooms throughout the day, and then providing instructional feedback based on our model, based on what I saw. I do agree with you. One of the challenges for sure is making the PD sticky, just like to make the learning sticky for students. With a wide variety and a vast majority of my teachers coming from multiple backgrounds, I have an average time in service of only about 7 years. I do have teachers in 0 to 30. On a much smaller scale, teaching kids they're not used to. So making the learning sticky is hard, and the more visibility and the more practice and at-bats and quick feedback that they get, the more successful we're becoming.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And just a quick follow-up, what is the transition rate like? Is that part of the challenge when it comes to professional development? Just in general?
You're talking about like teacher transition?
Yes.
So I'm super blessed. I have a 96% adult retention rate. I have to move people that don't fit, right? Based on parameters and things of that nature. So as far as transition with teachers, once those small pockets are filled, yes, there's a huge learning curve for sure. And I think it's more of a systems approach than it is a talent approach. We talk a lot, and we're going through right now this cycle of trust. Do you trust yourself? Do you trust the system? Do you trust your kids? Do you trust the lesson plan in front of you? Do you trust the professional development that you've had? So I use a ton of data-driven instructional feedback models through things like Teach Like a Champion, leverage leadership, things of that nature.
We too boast a high retention rate at Siembra, not quite 96, but we are in the low 90% retention rate. Knowing that Siembra is a project-based learning school, and that is an area of professional development that is not often taught in teacher preparation coursework, we prioritize our hiring strategy for our new teachers in the expansion of our school this year to focus on level 3 special education endorsed teachers to meet the high needs of our special education students. This was also in conjunction with the plan to hire promote instructional coaches from within the school who have experience in project-based learning. We also sent a specialized team of highly qualified instructors to go to PBL World this summer, where they developed an annual strategic plan with 4 benchmark goals for our students and staff that included the professional development based on the work that they, based on the learning that they went through this summer at PBL World. And that's all part of our intent to support the new teachers in our instructional system.
Great. That's great information. Thank you so much.
Okay, any board member Benavides?
Yeah, I just have a quick follow-up, and this is for the woman. I'm sorry, I didn't catch her name. Jen, thank you. So as you were speaking, you said you were referring to the teachers and saying teaching kids that they're not used to. Can you give a little bit of detail as to what you meant when you said that?
So I'll give kind of 2 polar opposite ends of the spectrum that I have on staff right now. One 29-year, at the time of hire, she was 25 years teaching geometry only in Gallup McKinley.
I'm sorry, we need the speaker to be a little closer to the mic.
How about now?
Good.
That's better, thank you.
Sorry, you're quite lost my train of thought.
Clarify your statement, teaching kids they're not used to.
Thank you. My now Algebra 1 and geometry teacher, she's coming 25 years from Gallup McKinley schools. Inner city youth was not her wheelhouse. It was, very, very much Gallup, New Mexico, right? A little bit on a rural side, things like that. So there's just a different, there's just a little bit different tone in her classroom that she wasn't used to. The other piece that's of note to her, and she would acknowledge this sitting right here, it's become kind of our inside joke, is our mission aligns, or our mission statement at Sena is that there's one mentor and that there's one highly trusted adult for students. And she had never taught in 25 years in an advocacy model or our advisory model, where we're advocating and champion for a student. She was in a very traditional lens as an Algebra 1 and geometry teacher. You write the referral, you send him to the dean's office. We don't have that, right? Our dean comes to the door, we have a restorative conversation, we maybe take a hot lap, figure out what the problem is, with the goal of them always going back to class, because they're coming to us at that juncture behind. So seeing that, when I say something like that they're not used to, I mean, that's a tall ask. And I really admire her tenacity to come do that with
A different approach.
in a little bit different approach, in a little different environment, in a little different community, and still get the exceptional results that she did in her classroom for 25 years in Gallup McKinley.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Any questions from no? Board Member Tomorito? Okay, I believe that concludes this discussion item.
Great. Thank you, Vice President Jackson, and thank you to the charter team for preparing the materials and preparing for the questions and discussion. We will move on now to agenda item 8, which is the president's report. So starting, as always, with public forum. Although public forum is not an opportunity for dialogue, we do want each speaker to know that they were heard and that we're working with the administration on resolutions. Some of the issues that we heard about tonight were regarding the original recording of Del Norte Band, children's health and well-being, charter schools in general, and also student public comment in support of Archer Academy of Accelerated Learning, La Academia de Esperanza Charter School, and Health Leadership High School. A couple of reminders for our board members as we're approaching the end of the calendar year and also the holiday season. So December 3rd is a policy committee meeting and December 5th is a board meeting. Materials for both of those meetings will be shared on November 20th, which is tomorrow or Friday. And questions will be due by noon the Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. So I want to flag questions are due at noon on Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. So not a holiday vacation for us, starting as early as Tuesday. We do want to make sure that we review those materials, that we review the agendas in advance, that we review the materials, and that we provide those questions in advance. The administration does work really hard to meet those agendas and to meet those deadlines, and to make sure that we have everything that we need to do our job. So it is really incumbent upon us to make sure that we're meeting those deadlines. So flagging again, questions are going to be due on Tuesday of that Thanksgiving week. And then for December 17th is the next board meeting after that. And there will be a reception for outgoing board members prior to that meeting. Also, there will be a finance committee meeting prior to that meeting. Both of those meetings, materials and agendas are going to be shared December 4th, and questions for those are going to be due on Tuesday, December 9th. We also ask that all board members please plan to submit your self-evaluation scores to Board Services Office no later than Monday, December 15th. So you have additional time for that. And again, we're moving our self-evaluation up so that it can be completed by this board. And so you'll be able to review our meetings and time and everything for the previous quarter. So October, November, and December. Just acknowledging that last month in October, the Board of Ed did host 2 community engagement events on the budget. We also had sessions with student leaders where students were given an opportunity to share their priorities on the budget. And that there was also a survey to the APS community regarding priorities for the next fiscal year budget. So we are working with the finance team and with board services now to consolidate all of that feedback, but also to track against our community engagement goals. So as board members know, but for the sake of the public, we did set some goals for ourselves around both the number of community engagement events that we undertake as a board, but also who we are reaching with specific goals tied to people who are who identify with any of the populations named in the Martinez-Yazzie case, as well as students as a priority. So really excited that we had some great conversations with students where they shared their priorities. It's probably not a surprise that it's always about the lunch, but we heard lots of other thoughts too about clear backpacks, metal detectors, security, covered parking garages, and lots of other things from those students. But we'll be working to consolidate all that information and share that both with the board and the public. So that concludes the president's report, and the next Board of Education meeting will be, as I just shared, Wednesday, December 5th at 5 p.m. at the Allison Bruce King Educational Complex at 6400 Uptown Boulevard, and also live streamed at aps.edu. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.